It's obvious, altcoins in this crypto narrative are likely to massively outperform the wider crypto market over the weeks and months ahead as this crypto bull market progresses. We're already seeing this happen with coins like WorldCoin, Aether and Nosana having significant pumps recently. But the question is, which DePIN projects are likely to see the biggest growth next? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you about 4 DePIN projects that I think you need to be aware of. Some of these projects have very small market caps and could well see some very exciting times ahead. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and let's get into today's video. Now guys, before we dive across and find out about those 4 DePIN projects and as well understand a little bit more about what's happening in the markets right now, just a quick disclaimer. Nothing I say in this video is financial advice. Everything I say is for entertainment purposes only. If you wish to invest in crypto, you should understand that it's risky and you can lose lots of money. So don't use money that you can't afford to lose, and always do your own research before investing in anything. Now that we got that out of the way, let's crack on with it. Now guys, before we jump across and look at those DePIN projects, it's important that we have a look at the wider crypto market to understand a little bit more about what we could see over the next few days ahead. Now, as you can see, the total 3, which is the crypto market minus Bitcoin and Ethereum, is running into all-time highs. And those are all-time highs that were set back in 2024. And if you go back, it's still pretty much the all-time high that we saw back at the top of the last bull market. Now, this is a pretty strong pattern, okay, where effectively you had a retrace, you come back for a smaller retrace, it creates this cup, and eventually you're likely to see this pushing to the height of the cup. Okay, this cup pattern could bring us all the way up to around a $1.9 to $2 trillion crypto market cap outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's very important. Not including those 2 massive coins, that would be enormous for altcoins. Okay, it will explode altcoins everywhere. Now, you probably heard that, not all the altcoins can pump because there's so many, and that's probably true. But it's pretty obvious, in my opinion, which altcoins will pump, which narratives are going to see some of the biggest growth, and it is altcoins that are effectively being used. They're effectively being used for part of a company that's generating a revenue, and that's where kind of DePIN comes in. But just before we jump across and look at what DePIN is specifically and why those altcoins are going to see such good growth potential, let's just have a look at the others chart, which is the altcoins outside the top 10. These are smaller market cap coins, and you can see that this is still lagging significantly behind. Again, it's running into this potential area of resistance. So that does mean that in the short term, as per usual, anything is possible. In the short term, next few days, maybe the next week or 2, we could see a bit of chop. Therefore, if the market does come down and we are lucky enough to see that, then we have a chance to find some entries on some of these coins. If we don't get that chance, we just go straight up through. I do think that it is game over for the bears because total 3 breaks this line and it's going to send, okay? And it's going to start sending very, very quickly. When that happens exactly, who cares? Okay, we just have to know that it is going to happen ahead of time. Now then, DePIN, what on earth does it stand for? Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. Now, a narrative that never existed in the last bull market. It actually is a term that came around from a Messari report that came out at the end of 2023. And effectively, decentralized physical infrastructure networks use crypto incentives to efficiently coordinate the build-out and operation of critical infrastructure. Now, what the F does that mean? I hear you cry. Well, effectively, you could think about decentralization, you, me, and everyone else being able to contribute to some form of a service or a network. Now, think about something that uses decentralized networks already, but in a kind of centralized way. Something like a mobile provider that has all of these different mobile towers that basically you as a customer have to pay money to get your 5G or Wi-Fi or whatever it is. That company makes all the money. Now imagine a time where you could have your own kind of mini mobile tower in your back garden, or you could have routers that are basically serving a Wi-Fi network, or you could have something that powers electric vehicles. Now that might be owned by a company, but you as an individual might get some payment for being able to look after that piece of the network. Now that's effectively what DePIN does. It takes real world infrastructure and it puts it on chain and it rewards you as an individual for contributing to the network. This is great because not only does it decentralize away from the monopolized kind of world that we live in to kind of rewarding people for contributing to networks, but it also can bring down the costs for customers. And this is why we're already starting to see a number of DePIN projects growing to great success levels. Okay, Aether's been pumping recently. It hit around $155 million per year in annualized revenue. Crypto companies typically historically have never been able to do these kind of numbers. This is a different bull market. We are starting to see projects coming out and blowing up. But you've been subscribed to the House of Crypto over the last few weeks, you've already been catching gains on Aether, WorldCoin, and others, and you've already heard me talk about Grass and other coins, which I'm still incredibly bullish on. But I thought it was time to introduce some new ones that you probably never even heard of, that are going to give you a bit more of an idea of, one, how DePIN can be so beneficial, but also potential for some coins that could see some significant gains into the bull market ahead. Of course, as I said earlier, make sure you do your own research after I've talked about them so that you understand for yourself whether or not they're for you. I'm just going to share with you my own research on this. Now, let's jump across to DePINscan.io, which is like CoinMarketCap, but for DePIN projects. It's actually pretty cool because not only does it show you the different projects, but it also talks about how you can kind of interact with these, and perhaps you can earn rewards by looking after the network and other things like that, where you can do staking, and also sometimes gives you a little bit more info on some of these projects and how much they're actually making in terms of the services and things they're offering, revenues, etc., which is very, very important when you're looking at DePIN projects. Now, some of these you've probably heard of. Many of these are coins that have been floating around since the last bull market and weren't necessarily coined as DePIN terms back then, but now starting to move across to this narrative. Now, going through the list and identifying ones that particularly came across as interesting for me, I came across this World Mobile Token. Currently sits with $176.8 million market cap, which is pretty big, but absolutely not the biggest we've seen. And some of the big DePIN projects in the last bull market, like Render, went to around $5 billion market caps at the top of their game. That's pretty massive, considering that Render only makes around $6 to $8 million per year in revenue, which actually is a tiny portion compared to that market cap. So it tells us that some of these projects could see some significant growth if they catch things at the right time. Now, World Mobile Token, you can probably figure out what it does. It's basically a decentralized phone network. Now, if you think about it, you use a mobile phone probably every single day for 5G networks, for whatever else you're using it for. Now, the problem with this is the people who provide you with that network are taking huge amounts of money from you for something that doesn't really cost anything in return. So to provide you with the service you need, it's probably really very cheap, but they're actually charging you $50, $60, $100 or whatever for your contract. Not only that, but they take all of that money. You're not contributing that money back to individuals who might be supporting the network themselves. Now, this is what World Mobile Token does, right? Effectively, it is a phone network, and you can see that you can put up these nodes to support the network, which is pretty cool, right? Because you could have that on your house or in your garden or wherever it is to be able to earn rewards for doing so. Now, not only would this give in the future a much better phone network, because imagine decentralized world, you're always going to be close to a phone tower like this that's going to be able to give you the data and everything that you need, but also it means that the prices and things can come down, because ultimately you don't have the big overheads paying for kind of the executive suites and whatever of Vodafone and Orange and all the other big companies. Okay, so pretty cool here. And most importantly, when it comes to DePIN, shop phone plans now. You can see that it is already offering a service, and they already have people who are paying and using these particular services. Now, this is for the USA, but this is one that really interests me. Now, you can see $70 per month might be a little bit on the higher end for some people out there, but as someone who is traveling literally all the time, right now I'm in Bali, I'm about to go somewhere else in Asia later on today, because there's obviously some big crypto events and things coming up around here. It's such a pain to move from contract to phone contract, being stuck without Wi-Fi and whatever else, airports and everything else like that. Global access data only. You can see I can buy a SIM here with mobile phone insurance and things like that. And basically I can use it in pretty much every single country that is listed on here, of which there's quite a few different ones. Now that's pretty damn cool, right? So basically it has people contributing to the network, earning rewards, and you as a user get to use a network that basically comes with lots of perks and things like that, and contribute back to the network that you're being a part of. Now, obviously, at the moment, you can see that maybe you might be like, oh, well, these prices might be a little bit higher. But as the network expands and more people start to join into the network, the prices are going to come down. And that's something that I think is going to happen across the board. Now, you can see, by clicking on air nodes, you can see some of these different nodes here. You can click on nodes here. You can go and see, you can go and buy a node from $62.99. And by having some of these different nodes that go up to $100,000, which is pretty pricey, you're going to be able to serve more and more people. By serving more and more people, you're going to be able to earn more and more tokens in reward for what you're doing. Okay, so pretty cool in general. Here you can see you can join the whitelist and find out more about kind of signing up for different nodes and things like that. Definitely worth doing. things like this, I think are going to be changing the way that we're living. And in a very short space of time, I think we are about to move into a very exciting time ahead. And if you've got a house or a rooftop, you could turn your house into a revenue supply. Okay, this is basically mining crypto, but for something actually useful, not just trying to fight other people to mine some Bitcoin or Casper or something else like that. Okay, effectively mining to get something in return and providing a service to people. And one of the other reasons that World Mobile is looking pretty damn good right now is the chart. I talked about this on my video that I made yesterday, how to identify time and time again winning chart patterns. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure after this video you go and check out that one as well, because it's going to allow you to see on the charts time and time again when to enter into crypto projects, giving you winning trade after winning trade if you're able to do it correctly. Now, effectively, what you can see is very clearly the price has been going down since top of the bull market, kind of mini bull market that we had at the end of the year back in December. You can see price goes down, price goes sideways, price then returns back up. Okay, that's very simple, shows a change of momentum into the direction that we want as investors. Now, if we were to draw an arc here, you can see that we have this kind of range, comes up, puts in a resistance line. Previous resistance becomes future support. And now you can see after breaking through, World Mobile Token has created this very long wick towards the downside here. Okay, this long wick suggests that this is finding buyers coming in above here. Now, if the market does go a bit flat over the weekend, potentially it does come down in and around this zone. But as you can see where it was in the past, this still looks like a pretty good entry in my personal opinion. Okay, pretty good entry around there, judging by how typically these charts play out. Obviously, you might be wrong, go and do your own research and all those things, okay? But, you know, you can see from what I like to look at here, this is where we might see some continuation. And just to show you how well that chart pattern works, for anyone who doesn't trust it, this is Dogecoin back before. You can see it has this kind of rounded base. This is then what happens to Dogecoin, okay? And in fact, you can go back in time. Dogecoin basically does this time and time again, okay? It goes down, rounded base, puts in the top, breaks, and obviously had a ridiculous bull market run like that. Whether we see that again for Dogecoin, I'm not really sure. This is a DePIN video, so stop asking about meme coins. Now, next up, and one I have talked about in the past, is Peaq Network. Now, Peaq Network currently sits with a $128 million market cap, which is pretty small, considering what we've been looking at in terms of some of the larger layer ones. Okay, this is similar sized to World Mobile Token. Now, Peaq Network is unlike World Mobile Token in that it is a layer 1 blockchain for DePIN projects. And some of the other projects that we'll look at today have been built on top of Peaq. Now, Peaq basically provides all the tools for different projects to come in and turn their decentralized systems into blockchain reality. Now, going down through this website, even if you're not interested in investing in crypto at all or whatever, just go and look at this website and understand a little bit more about the future potential of crypto, blockchain, and DePIN, okay? Already they're in partners with MasterCard, Airbus, Continental, Bosch, okay? These are big, big names outside of crypto, and it suggests where the kind of future is headed. At the moment, 3 million different machines have been created for different projects that are being built on Peaq. And this is pretty cool, right? Because effectively, you're starting to see real network effect, real people coming in to use this. Okay, 60 plus projects have been built on Peaq so far. If you come to learn and then go to ecosystem, then you can come down below and you can see all of these different ones that are being built here, okay? That's pretty cool, right? These different applications are being built using Peaq. Some of these have coins, some of them are just like traditional kind of companies in telecom, okay, for example, Deutsche Telekom, and other things like that. But effectively, this is like a decentralized network to build different DePIN projects on top of. But I'm not going to go into too much depth because I'm going to talk about a project next that is built on Peaq, and it's going to give you a bit more of an understanding about how Peaq might be working, okay? But whenever you're looking at layer 1 blockchains and things like that to understand whether or not you should be investing in, say, Sui, Aptos, whatever it is, go and look at the ecosystem. Go and look at the use cases, the different projects and things that are being built. These use cases are going to give you a bit of an eye-opener into what's going on in crypto. You can see 5G networks. You can see AI data marketplaces, okay? So effectively collecting lots of data and things like that. You can see things like cloud gaming. You can hear about electric scooter sharing, electric car charging, all sorts of other things. Also, just as an example, if you've ever seen one of those Google cars drive through your town or city with that little camera on top of it, think about how much that costs Google to be able to do that. And also think about how kind of like limited it's been for a very long time because they've only got a certain number of cars. So some of those cars are going to produce videos and things that are going to be out of date in 10 years time. And in most of the world right now, 10 years is quite a long time between development. Imagine if you could have a dash cam on your car that is gathering the imagery from outside of you. That could be used for understanding what's happening with the traffic. That could be used for updating kind of the scenery and showing you which buildings and whatever are everywhere. And that feeds to a centralized ecosystem. And then for that, then you can also earn rewards, which is a project called Hivemind, by the way. And if you look across to Peaq, we've already kind of drawn this out. And by the way, this is a good chart to look at because it shows you that the chart pattern that I've drawn there does have from time to time the ability to basically fake itself out and then come back down. Now, that's obviously good to know, but as you know, the market conditions have changed significantly from back in May time. Back in May, Peaq had a little bit of a run, came back down, as did the wider crypto markets. However, now, with interest rate cuts coming in, Bitcoin near enough all-time highs, Total 3 waiting to break all-time highs and other things, Peaq looks to have bottomed out here. It's rounded off again. It's had a very strong rally, and this is the kind of indicator for me that DePIN in general is seeing a big wake-up. What I like to see is it's come back to this baseline here, now starting to show support. This wick down here says that the buyers are stepping in, sellers are starting to exhaust. It looks pretty good for me. And can I go back to all-time highs into the future? Well, it's not that easy to speculate so much on this. Probably, in my opinion, it can. I do like to use that kind of render example. Now, let's rattle through them. Something else that is definitely catching the wave right now is robotics. And robotics probably goes hand in hand with AI. AI is great because you can talk to it and you can use it online. But into the future, when you want a robot to deliver your Amazon package, or whether you want like robot taxi drivers and all these other things that are probably going to be coming in soon, that's probably where things are going. And that's where Geod comes in. $60 million market cap. So half the size of the first two that I talked about. We will go a little bit smaller into the next one as well. But this is something that's really caught my attention. And I'll tell you why it is. GEODNET is basically powering the future of robotics. How does it do it? Well, we need to understand what robotics might need. Imagine a robot right now. How does it know where it is? It needs to be able to speak to a GPS, right? How accurate is the GPS on your phone? If you've ever tried to go and find a shop somewhere or whatever, typically you'll go and look at it and you'll be like, oh, the shop's like 10, 20 meters over there. That's fine when you're looking for a shop to go and get your sandwich or whatever. But it's not fine when you're talking about a robot being able to deliver something to a door. For a robot to be able to deliver something to your door, it needs to have GPS accuracy far beyond what is available now. And this is what GEODNET does, right? Effectively, it is powering robotics by creating a far more accurate location system. And you can see you can go and contribute to this network by buying a different GEODNET station. So by clicking on here, and you can go buy one of these things, that basically contributes data back to this system, or you can go and buy the data. So right now, if you want to go and create some form of robotics or whatever else it is that needs super accurate data, then you can go and do that here. You can see some of these go in different values right now. And if you go back to the website, you can find out a little bit more about some of the revenue and things that are coming through. At the moment, $5.6 million per annum. Now, that's pretty big, considering the market cap is just $60 million. A lot of projects in crypto could only dream of making such a large amount of money for their relative scale. Remember, Render went to a $5 billion market cap while only making $8 million a year. And I think that this as a service is far more useful than the decentralized rendering service that Render offers. And you can see 80% of the data revenue created by GEODNET is basically fed back into the system in order to buy back and burn tokens. They buy back tokens. This upsets the supply and demand model and effectively could lead to substantial growth. And you can see that this growth curve is pretty strong. Robotics is an area to be paying attention to. Possibly we're very, very early here, but I do think into the future, this is going to see a lot of excitement in this area. So you can see effectively by using this system is creating a centimeter position accuracy for mass market applications. Centimeter accuracy, for example, knowing exactly where you are to within centimeters, something that could be used for different devices. Anything you can think of in robotics that would need accuracy to within a centimeter or two could be utilizing something like this one day. And effectively, it's only something that really can be achieved through a decentralized network. Some of the backers here are some of the biggest names in the game, Animoca Brands, etc. And that shows you where the smart money is looking right now. This one, in my opinion, looks a little bit undervalued. And if we jump across to the chart, again, what do we see? It launched back into 2024, and since then it's had a pretty strong market. It rallied quite strongly into Christmas, and right now is producing our favorite kind of reversal pattern, where we can see a nice trend lower, and then that reversal lower then gets replaced with this. You can see it's broken its neckline here and is starting to look to retest it here. Now again, that doesn't of course guarantee that it can't come back in this box, but you know, buying in and around this zone traditionally is far better than buying in and around here, which is what the majority of people do. Your job isn't to worry about whether or not it might come down a few more cents in the next day or two, because you don't know, neither does anyone. Right now, you just need to know that the price is low. My job is to know that the price is low, buy low, and sell high. Okay? I don't care whether I buy the absolute bottom and sell the absolute top. That is not my job. Okay? That is not your job as an investor. And trying to do that basically ends in tears. Now, last but not least, and a project that's actually built on Peaq with a pretty tiny market cap is Silencio with a $5.9 million market cap. Now, this basically continues on from the theme of what we've been talking about today. And hopefully by now you started to understand a little bit more about DePIN and why DePIN is actually a really cool thing and why the future is actually going to get changed for normal people using blockchain technology. This is where money is to be made in crypto. It's not by understanding that this liquid staking and whatever does this. It's really by understanding where mass adoption comes from. When people start to use crypto without even realizing they're using crypto, that's where we start to see the biggest growth and the projects that will be around into the future. Now, Silencio is, as I said, built on to Peaq, okay? The world's ears for AI and robotics. Now, that sounds a bit weird, right? But I've been looking through this and started to understand a little bit more about what it means. Into the future, you've seen those images, you've seen the movies of robots walking around, listening to things, talking to people, understanding what's going on. They will need to be trained using background noise. They also need to be trained on different languages, not only different languages, but I'm from the UK. People who come from this part of the country speak very different from that part of the country. They have to learn accents, they have to learn dialects, all these different bits and pieces. Now that then creates huge amounts of data in sound that needs to be processed by AI and also robotics. Think about this for a second, okay? This is what Silencio is doing. It allows you to run a node that listens in to the overall environment. Now, that might be out on the street, that might be in a hotel, that might be you individually on your phone or whatever it is. And effectively, that data can then be repackaged and sold to AI companies and robotics companies to be able to understand and train their models using noise. It's already been used by some of the biggest names across the internet, etc. Now, there's a little video that shows you how this works. It's quite cool. Definitely go and check it out. But you can see at the moment, global network of 1.1 million people. These 1.1 million contributors are earning Silencio tokens as rewards. This is cool because they're making their money by selling the data to different companies. Okay, so the AI companies, the robotics, will buy sound data from Silencio, and Silencio will then make money on that, which they'll use to buy back their token and drive the whole ecosystem. Okay, so this is basically the classic model of how a DePIN works. You can see it talks about AI machine learning. It also talks about autonomous robots and things like that. It talks about real estate and other things. So for real estate evaluation, it's very important that we live in somewhere that's nice and quiet for most of us. Things like that definitely contribute to whether or not we're willing to buy a house, right? And you can see these are companies they're targeting. Doesn't necessarily mean they're working with them yet, because right now they're at like $5 million market cap. But again, very unique position in this market. And it's a pretty cool kind of system, in my opinion, from the price tag right now with real users in the millions that are generating revenue by selling the data, etc. But it all makes quite a lot of sense to me at that kind of valuation. Now, if we go and look at a chart, you can see that this launched back in kind of January time. And as you can see, it's created this kind of like double bottom pattern. Okay, pretty strong pattern for this particular project. In fact, it's kind of similar in a way to what we see with like Aether here, where you can see January basically down like this. But unlike kind of Aether, it doesn't have this kind of like pre-existing data back here. Okay, so this right now is pretty much running back up into this zone. Now you can see it's broken that zone here and it's kind of started to come back to retest this area here. I would expect to see some form of continuation from here. That's obviously no guarantee, of course, but I think round now, markets are still looking good. What happens in the next week or two ahead, no real idea. Okay, we are seeing a little bit of a pullback on Peaq and a few others, which is pretty good. It's a good day to bring you a video like this. Okay, let me know down below if you found it useful, which coins of these you're interested in, you're going to go do some more research on. If you're going to go and purchase these coins, then make sure you sign up down below, either Bitunix or WEEX. These two exchanges should have the majority of tokens that I talk about on this video. I'm going to make sure that I go away now to speak to the teams there and ask them to list the coins that I've talked about today, so that if you wish to go and buy them after researching, etc., then you can do so. Those exchanges can be accessed whichever country you're in, which if you travel a lot like me is pretty useful, and also come with some of the lowest fees around. Also, if you use my link specifically, you're going to gain some significant bonuses that are not available to anyone else out there in the markets. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye-bye.